keep an ear on that. We want to bring in Aviation Attorney Steven C to talk about what we've learned so far as we sit here today on Sunday, because the images just keep playing over and over again. Now we're learning more and more about the victims. If mechanical failure played a role in the Philadelphia crash, who could be held accountable as I mean, it's kind of far down the road to talk about that. And even the mayor was just saying, look, we're being careful about how much information we're putting out because this is an investigation. So as we move towards that and down that road, we'll get there eventually. Who could be held responsible?
Well, obviously, the most important thing is to think about the families and what they're going through, because they're in a difficult stage, identifying bodies, body parts, dealing with a tragedy that's so unexpected. Is the worst for the families. As far as the liability goes, there should be controller tapes that are already available. The black box, I think, will be recovered and will have all the recoverable information. The cockpit voice recorder as well will have vital information on what the two pilots were saying to one another. But there's only a few reasons that a plane like that goes down, just like in DC. It's human error, could be pilot error, could be maintenance, could be manufacturing, or it could be something that was on the aircraft itself. It was a medical aircraft, so I saw oxygen tanks. So there could have been something that disrupted the airflow on the wings, because quite frankly, when you look at the flight profile, which is hard to tell, it is such a deep descent. And I've flown the 55 before. The Lear products in general have a very, very quick ascent rate. And so the angle of attack is almost vertical. And so it is easy to find yourself in a stall situation if you lose any engine power. So there's a lot of speculation. It's too early. We will get answers. Just like in DC, we'll get answers.
Right. Stephen, you know what really struck me earlier today when we were having our report with Caitlin Becker is we were talking about that this plane was in the air for a minute. I mean, this was very, very fast. Whatever happened very quickly. So, again, we've got our ears on this live press conference happening right now in Philadelphia. We're listening for new information. We'll bring it to you. You mentioned D.C. Let's switch over and talk about that, because when we talk about the liability determined in a midair collision, totally different situation, especially when it's military and civilian aircraft are involved. Have you dealt with this before? How do you even begin to parse that out?
I have dealt with this on numerous occasions. And in fact, there's an eerily similar crash that I represented all the victims on. It was the DHL Biscayne crash. It was a Russian plane that was traveling from Ufa, Russia with children for a summer camp going to Spain. SkyGuide was the Swiss controller that was operating. They had one controller. They should have had two. The one controller was on the phone. There was a requirement to have two controllers in the booth because they were doing manual maintenance on the automated equipment. There were miscommunications, mistraining by the flight crew, inoperable mechanical issues that would have prevented the accident. So like almost every accident that ever happens in aviation, having done this for 40 years, I will tell you, it is a convalescence of things. It is a combination of many factors that go wrong at the same time, because an accident like this should not, in today's world, ever happen. Now, 30 years ago, I've been involved in close calls, but in today's air traffic control system, this kind of accident should never happen, and it can only happen if there are multiple failures of the system. And don't forget, these pilots were on a training mission, which makes no sense to me that they would be training in a busy, congested area, our nation's most important airport. And more importantly, they were night vision goggles, which the visibility was good, and there's a lot of ambient light in DC. And so you lose peripheral vision when you wear night vision goggles.
Right.
You can't really see around you. So the fact that they misidentified the aircraft, well, largely would have been due to the goggles. And let's not forget, the approach was changed at the last minute, and there was only one controller instead of another, and they weren't looking. So there's lots of blame to go around. The black boxes will tell us who is more egregiously at fault, but there are multiple players here.
Right. That's one of the things that we're learning as we move through this. And unfortunately, we've covered a lot of these stories, air crashes, and there's supposed to be all these different layers that if one thing goes wrong, the next level will catch you and save you, and so on and so forth. But to have this happen, we're all still trying to wrap our minds around it. Aviation Attorney Steven C. Marks, thank you very much for your perspective. Great content to help us understand. Thank you.
Thank you for